Are you prepared to advise the president not to pardon people who beat police officers?
Senator, as I said, the pardons are at the direction of the president. We will look and we will advise. I will look at every case on a case.
So
let me finish. On a case-by-case basis.
Okay, good.
And I abhor violence to police officers.
Follow up with that. So will it be your advice to the president, Mr. President, I know you said you want to issue hundreds of pardons on day one.
I will look at every file I am asked to look at.
Of course you won't. So will you advise the president?
Can I answer the question?
Well, my question.
In a heated Senate confirmation hearing, Adam Schiff pressed former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi on a series of questions that cut straight to the core of presidential power, the independence of the Justice Department, and the limits of accountability in modern American politics.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, as you know, the Supreme Court in Trump versus United States held the president has absolute immunity to commit crimes in certain core areas of the president's responsibility. One of those core areas is the Justice Department. So in a breathtakingly dangerous and irresponsible decision, Justice Roberts and the majority held the president could commit crimes using the Department of Justice and be immune from prosecution. Justice Sotomayor correctly said this new immunity lies about like a loaded weapon. So the fear and the concern we have is that the incoming president will use that loaded weapon, that immunity, to commit crimes through the Department of Justice. And for that reason, it is all the more important that we have an attorney general who has the independence, the strength, the intestinal fortitude to say no to the president when it is necessary. So my first set of questions has to do whether you have the independence to say no when you must say no. And you can say this is hypothetical, but it is not hypothetical. So let me start with one very specific non-hypothetical. The president has said Jack Smith should go to jail. Will you investigate Jack Smith?
Senator, I haven't seen the file. I haven't seen the investigation. I haven't looked at anything. It would be irresponsible of me to make a commitment regarding anything without, you're a long practicing attorney, without looking at a file.
So you would need a
Period.
factual predicate to open an investigation of Jack Smith, is that right?
Not a summary by you sitting here. Yes, sir.
And not a summary by the president either, right?
Absolutely.
So a summary by the president or his desire to investigate Jack Smith would not be enough for you to open an investigation of Jack Smith, is that right?
I will look at the facts and evidence in any case.
And sitting here today,
Senator, 72% of Americans
I only have
have
7
lost
minutes.
faith in the Department of Justice.
Sitting here today, are you aware of any factual predicate to investigate Jack Smith? Sitting here today, yes or no?
Senator, I will look at the facts and the circumstances.
You can't answer that question.
Brought to me.
You're not a part of the department yet. There's no worry about divulging
I'm sitting
law
here as a
enforcement
nominee.
sensitive information. So just tell us,
I'm
are you
sitting here as
aware?
a nominee.
Just tell us, are you aware of a factual predicate to investigate Jack Smith? Yes or no?
Senator, what I'm hearing on the news is
Are you aware
horrible.
of a?
Do I know if he committed a crime? I have not looked
You seem reluctant to answer a simple question. Let me ask you a different simple question. The president also wants to jail Liz Cheney. Sitting here today, are you aware of any factual basis to investigate Liz Cheney? Yes or no?
Senator, that's a hypothetical, and I'm not going to answer that question.
No, it's not hypothetical. I'm asking you, sitting here today, whether you are aware of a factual predicate to investigate Liz Cheney.
Senator, no one
Based
has
on what
asked
you
me
know.
to investigate Liz Cheney. That is a
The
hypothetical.
president has called for it publicly. You are aware of that, aren't you?
No one has asked me to investigate.
But the president has
We're
called,
also
the
worried
president,
about Liz Cheney,
the
Senator.
president has
You know
called
what we
for
should
this.
be worried about?
Ms. Bondi,
The
please
crime rate
answer
in
my questions.
California right now
You
is
are
through
aware,
the roof.
Ms. Bondi,
Your robberies
Ms.
are
Bondi,
87% higher than the national average.
My question is this.
That's what I
My
want to
question
be
is this.
focused on, Senator.
Do you have the
if I'm
power to
confirmed
say
as
no to the
Attorney
president?
General.
And what you're suggesting today by your non-answer is you don't have the independence to say no to the president. So let me ask you a different question. It also requires you, if you're going to be a good attorney general, to be able to tell hard truths to the president. So my questions now are, can you tell hard truths to the president? So let me start with an easy truth that you could speak to the president. Can you tell us, can you tell him that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? Can you say that? Do you have the independence to say that? Do you have the gravitas, the stature, the intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election? Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I
No,
won't
I'm just
do it.
asking you a simple
I
question.
won't play
If you can
politics
speak truth
with any ongoing
to power.
investigation,
So let me ask you another.
like you did
let me-
leaking your
let me ask
colleague
you-
Devin Nunes's memo.
If you can't answer the question, let me ask you a different, what should be a simple truth, not a hard one. Was there massive fraud affecting the result of the 2020 election, yes or no?
Senator, I'm glad you asked that question, if you'll let me answer what I saw in Pennsylvania.
No, I asked a simple question about massive fraud.
I can only tell you what I saw in Pennsylvania.
I know you want to answer a different question, but my question is, can you tell us whether there was massive fraud affecting the results of the 2020 election, yes or no? Was there
I
or
can
was there
tell
not?
you what I saw when I went
That's
as an
not my,
advocate
that's
to
not
the
my
campaign.
question. So you can't answer that question. You can't speak that even easy truth to us, let alone to the president. So let me ask you a different question. It will also be important that you give good advice to the president. Are you prepared to advise the president not to pardon people who beat police officers?
Senator, as I said, the pardons are at the direction of the president. We will look and we will advise. I will look at every case on a case.
so
Let
you'll
me
look at-
finish on a case-by-case
Okay,
basis.
okay, good.
And I abhor violence to police officers.
Follow up with that. So will it be your advice to the president, Mr. President, I know you said you want to issue hundreds of pardons on day one. Will it be your advice to the president? No, Mr. President, I need to go over them on a case-by-case basis. Do not issue blanket pardons. Will that be your advice to the president?
Senator, I have not looked at any of those files. If confirmed, I will look at the files
And
for
will
the
you be able to
pardons, as
do,
well
will
as
you
the
be able to
ongoing
review
investigation.
hundreds of cases on day one?
I will look at every file I am
Of course
asked
you
to
won't.
look
So
at.
will you advise the
Hey,
president?
can I
will
answer
you-
the question?
Well, my question
I
is-
would have plenty of staff. You said, of course you want.
You'll be able to review
Listen, I'm
hundreds
not
of
going to
cases on the first day?
mislead this body nor you.
All right, let me ask another question. You don't want to answer that. Let me ask
You were
another question.
censured by
It will
Congress,
also-
Senator, for
it will
comments just
also-
like this that
it
are
will
so reckless.
It will also be important for you to be able to preserve the records, the evidence of the department. Are you ready to commit that none of the evidence in the January 6th investigation will be destroyed under your watch?
Senator, I will follow the law. I will consult with ethical officials in the
Do you
department.
see any ethical basis to destroy evidence in the January 6th investigation? Then why can't you answer the question? Why can't you say, I commit to this committee, we will never destroy the evidence in the January 6th investigation? Why can't you give this committee and the American people that assurance?
Are you frightened because evidence was destroyed against President Trump that was false? Is that why you're
Why do
frightened
you
now?
have
I can't
difficulty?
believe this is even.
Why do you have difficulty answering that question?
I can't believe
Why do you
you're
have
asking such a
difficulty?
question.
Why do you have difficulty promising to preserve evidence at the Department of Justice? Why is that a difficult question?
I will follow the law.
It shouldn't be a difficult question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, I know that you are pleased that we are moving to the end of round one, and we appreciate your being here.
Schiff began by referencing a controversial Supreme Court ruling involving Donald Trump, raising concerns about presidential immunity and its potential to shield actions taken through the Department of Justice. The key issue here is not just legal theory, it is whether a president could use federal law enforcement power for personal or political purposes without consequence. That concern has been echoed by critics who argue that expanding executive immunity risks weakening checks and balances. If you're following how power is distributed in government, this is a critical moment to pay attention to. The questioning quickly turned specific. Schiff asked whether Bondi would investigate Jack Smith simply because a president wanted it. Bondi's response focused on process. She said she would need facts and evidence before opening any investigation. On the surface, that aligns with legal standards, since prosecutors are expected to act on evidence, not political pressure. But Schiff was not satisfied because his concern was not about process in theory, but about independence in practice. If you're seeing the distinction here, you're understanding the deeper tension, so keep watching. Schiff then escalated, asking about potential investigations into Liz Cheney and whether Bondi could reject political demands outright. Her repeated reluctance to give direct yes or no answers became the central issue. In legal and political settings, refusing to answer directly can sometimes signal caution, but it can also raise doubts about how someone might act under pressure. If you think public officials should give clearer answers in moments like this, share your thoughts and stay engaged. The hearing then shifted into one of the most politically sensitive topics, the 2020 election. Schiff asked Bondi whether she could tell the president a simple truth, that he lost the election. This question goes beyond politics. It tests whether a future attorney general can provide honest counsel, even when it contradicts a president's narrative. Bondi avoided giving a direct answer, instead criticizing the framing of the question. That moment stood out because it highlighted the challenge of balancing political loyalty with factual integrity. If you're still watching, this is where the stakes become very real. Another key issue raised was the potential for pardons, especially for individuals involved in violence against law enforcement. Schiff asked whether Bondi would advise against blanket pardons and instead review cases individually. Her response again emphasized process rather than commitment, stating she would review files if confirmed. While that may sound reasonable, critics argue that leadership often requires clear positions, not just procedural assurances. If you're learning how decisions at this level can impact real-world outcomes, keep following. Perhaps the most striking exchange came when Schiff asked whether Bondi would commit to preserving evidence related to the January 6th investigation. This question touches on the integrity of the justice system itself, because the preservation of evidence is fundamental to accountability. Bondi responded that she would follow the law, but Schiff pressed further, asking why she could not explicitly promise that no evidence would be destroyed. That persistence reflects a broader concern that vague commitments may not be enough in moments of high political tension. If this raises questions for you about transparency and trust, you're not alone. Throughout the hearing, Bondi maintained that she would act within legal and ethical boundaries, but Schiff repeatedly highlighted what he saw as gaps between principle and clarity. This exchange reveals a deeper issue in modern governance, the growing expectation that officials must not only follow the law, but also clearly demonstrate independence from political influence. If you're interested in how these expectations shape leadership, stay with us for more analysis like this. At its core, this confrontation was about more than any single question. It was about whether the Justice Department can remain independent in an era of intense political polarization. Schiff's aggressive questioning and Bondi's cautious responses illustrate the difficulty of navigating that space. For viewers, the takeaway is clear. These moments matter because they shape how power is exercised and constrained at the highest levels. If this breakdown helped you understand the bigger picture, share this and let us know your perspective.